Yeah, so we haven't checked in with Portland for a while, so I thought we would, because it's been a couple of years since anything very newsworthy has happened there. Because what has happened in Portland is that all of the terrible things that in sort of 2018 to 2020, people are like, oh my God, what's going on in Portland? Well, they became just the norm. And so I thought we'd check in and see what the norm looks like in Portland now. But before we do, if you want to support us, you can go to lotus.com and check out my latest deep think, Rousseau Savage. And this is very relevant to the question of Portland, because this is what the mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, he is still the mayor of Portland, by the way, is trying to achieve in Portland, so that no one is dependent on one another while still living in a society. There's a lot more to it, but I'm not going to spoil it. It's really worth your time. I put a lot of effort into it. But anyway, we're also still looking to hire presenters. So if you think you would be good at this job, if you have a particular sphere of expertise, do go to lotus.com/careers and check out the job description and send us an email. But anyway, things are going well in Portland since the George Floyd riots, says the mayor of Portland. You may remember that despite not being anywhere near where George Floyd died.
He was killed. I mean, what by is a...
Yeah, well, George Floyd was killed, that's true. But anyway, so there's massive amounts of violent crime, which are the first of many problems that Portland has. A report was recently produced about the violent crime in Portland, and this is what Fox have to say about it. This report confirms the unfortunate reality of what we already knew, that gun violence is on the rise in Portland, is being driven by a very small percentage of our population, says Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler in a statement following the release of this data. So the researchers for the California Partnership for Safe Communities compiled crime data from the city, specifically examining homicides and non-fatal shootings from 2019 to 2021. And they found a 144% increase in homicides in that 2-year period, well, year and a half period. Non-fatal shootings increased by 241%. So, brilliant. It's just so progressive.
I mean, this is what left-wing ideology does to your city.
We'll get to that.
Perfect case study.
That's exactly why we're covering this. This is, of course, a massive increase. So in 2019, it began ticking up with 36 homicides that year compared to 26 in 2018, which is bad. But that average was soon obliterated, the data shows. 2020 notched a 58% increase in that, and then 2021 was a 238% increase from that. It's like, right.
And also, at least one of those was politically motivated. I mean,
at least one of them was.
We do remember,
yes.
For people who don't know, an Antifa guy who said, I'm 100% Antifa, waited for a guy in a MAGA hat around the corner, walked out, shot him, killed him, and then died in a shootout with the police because he was so innocent.
That is after a nice puff piece by Vice News, though. Anyway, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is, of course, gang violence is through the roof. It does seem to be that it's not regular, average Portlanders who are just like, you know what? I am absolutely sick of this. You know, it's not.
We
that.
do live in a society.
Just joke and makeup on. It's not that, weirdly enough, right? So when you go through the data and filter for killings from gun violence, it shows more than half of the fatal shootings involved gang or group members. They're called. So gangs, pejorative term, not very progressive.
No, sorry, what?
You don't want to stigmatize these murderous groups of people. So they're just group members now, right?
What kind of groups? Well, gangs, but, you know.
Crips. So the study defined groups loosely as a variety of subset of gangs and crews active in Portland and Oregon, but they didn't name them for some reason.
So, like Congress people are a crew.
Yes, and this has exploded since the George Floyd protests, where they got 100 consecutive nights of protests and riots in summer of 2020, businesses burned and looted, an autonomous zone established, and millions of damage to various buildings, and millions more in lost income from people who couldn't operate. But anyway, Ted Wheeler, of course, apologized to those protesters at the time as the autonomous zone was dismantled because people getting shot in it. Do you remember Ted Wheeler? The guy who tried to integrate himself into Antifa in 2018 and got told to piss off Fed, and then got his block of flats attacked and set on fire by the people he was trying to integrate himself into. And when he had to take this down, he has to then go and apologize to those same people. Amazing governance. So anyway, the violence we'll get back to in a minute. Let's talk about the homeless camps, because there's some violence coming out of these as well, just in case you didn't know. Homeless camps are proliferating in Portland to the point where they've become lawns. They've come to the lawns of residential neighborhoods. At least one homeless camp has been charging rent as well. $200 a month to live in a homeless camp.
What the hell's a homeless camp?
Well, it's a camp of homeless people.
But like set up by them or set up by the state? I don't understand.
Well, that's a great question, actually. But you can see that now this is affecting the middle classes. You voted for this. I'm not going to insult them.
No, but they did have an election for Ted.
Yep.
And I remember
they've had multiple elections for Ted.
One of the other alternatives was a Maoist, and a bunch of them voted for her too. So
yes. So you either get the communist or the ultra-communist. And this is a quote: "I just want to cry. I just want my house back. My lawn is now becoming a public bathroom." Harnett says there are grown men meth raging in the neighborhood's driveways. You voted for it.
Meth raging?
Yeah. Unless you voted for Trump, you voted for this. But you get these homeless pod villages springing up now, which is wild. Portland, the city's local government, if you can go to the next one, has assembled these pod villages so people can go somewhere to enjoy their drugs.
Sorry, there's a Portaloos for drugs.
Yes. And for homeless people. So they go live in these. There's been a high demand for these services because of people experiencing homelessness. And then someone started making like mobile pods for the homeless. It's really weird. If you go to the next one, John. Right, there are these mobile pods that have wheels on them, right? And they're 6 foot by 8 foot pods with wheels that have been turning up with homeless people, of course, and no one knows where they were coming from. And so this local newspaper investigated, and they found that they spoke to some of the people in the pods, some of whom are friendly, some of whom are not. But there's a chap with a website and a phone number, but they didn't give his information. But he's apparently prefabricating the structures elsewhere. Then he builds it on site for people living on the streets. Who the hell is this? It's building little mobile, like, homeless chariot pods. Okay, weird. But needless to say, locals aren't happy. Some homeowners, a homeowner called Larry Smith, said a woman came out of a pod screaming at him when passing by as he was out for a walk. I wouldn't go for a walk in Portland these days, Jesus. One of our neighbors has photos looking in because the structures have windows and have drug paraphernalia straight up inside the structure, just like tinfoil drug paraphernalia. These are people that are really in need of a lot of help. Clearly. Probably need to be given... No, I'm not even going to... I'm not going to make jokes. That's not funny. City officials, right? Exactly. I'm just saying the Taliban are actually right about heroin addicts.
No, but I mean, Nick said this. I mean, we've had him on. Works at a homeless charity in Manchester.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't endorse the Taliban, but
I'm not endorsing the Taliban.
He made the big point, which is if you want to solve homelessness, I mean, the real problem, especially in the West, is drug taking. I mean, it's the difference between someone who's begging for the fact that they can't get work because they're on drugs or because they're actually homeless. And those camps are wildly different.
Well, in Portland, the progressive view, I don't know where this flies come from. The progressive view is that the problem with the drug addicts is they don't have enough drugs. And so they need to give them drugs and a place to do their drugs. And then world more gooder for some reason. But let's watch this first clip to see what the people in it are like. And again, I think all these people probably voted left wing right up until today.
I'm living in a nightmare neighborhood.
It's really scary.
For years, these neighbors have been watching the city's homeless crisis spread across parts of Southeast Portland. Now it's right outside their front door.
I want to cry. I just want my house back.
Christina Hartnett lives on 80th and Powell, where a majority of the campers stay.
My lawn is now becoming a public bathroom.
She fears leaving her house just to go to work.
And it is scary when you have grown men meth raging in your driveway. The last thing I feel safe doing is going out and saying, hey, can you please move so I can go to work?
Calling the police and city is an everyday chore with little reward.
So far, no one has come to help us.
Central City Concern Clean Start crews assessed this site Thursday. It was one of about 1,900 other campsites reported just this week. In the past 10 days, they found 272 encampments that pose a greater health and safety risk, which is why they haven't removed the camps in this neighborhood. But just getting the city to come out and assess it has been a full-time job.
I have to report from like 4 different 4 different bureaus. Then I have to report that report to a report. And then I have to report that report to a second report. And it's the only way to get any kind of traction.
I feel like nobody hears us. Nobody cares about us.
This mother didn't want to be identified on camera, afraid of retaliation from those living on the streets. She rarely lets her children outside to play.
It's very sad. Because they're just kids, so they want to play.
I don't know where they're coming from.
Tess has lived in this neighborhood for 35 years. These boards now cover her front door windows after they were smashed by those living on the streets. She also installed security cameras around her house.
Scared. Most of all scared because I don't know what they're going to go next.
It's also affecting a nearby restaurant.
It unnerves our customers when they pull in and they see people overdosing on the sidewalks out in front of our restaurant.
It is going to take one of us getting severely hurt or killed before they will do anything to come help us.
Meanwhile,
please come help me.
Does our city do something about it? Are they doing something about these people that need some help?
This never-ending cry for help continues.
Okay, but that is the point. It's just delusion about, well, the people in charge are the one who have caused this situation. I mean, by their own ideological standards, they're happy to see this happen.
And you know that come the next election, they're going to vote Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, the people in that report, I almost feel sorry for, but I do sit there and sort of think, I want to see your voting record.
Yeah, you vote for this. I'm absolutely sure every single one of those people were like, oh, I'm never going to vote Republican. They're evil.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
it's good to see Andy got out in time at least.
Oh yeah, well I mean Andy's in physical danger in Portland. But anyway, if we can go to the next one, right? This is a great clip. Just cyclists out for a bike ride. Look at all this. Just look at this. Half a mile of
First world country.
Allegedly,
been accused of being a first world country. There's no evidence of that. But...
Well, not in Portland, there isn't. I mean,
God.
But again, like all the middle class do-gooders who are like, oh, we just need to be kind and compassionate to all of these criminals and drug dealers. It's like, oh no, now it's arrived on your front lawn. It's like, yes.
Maybe we should defund the police.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe those guys downtown who are trying to burn down a skyscraper that's the courthouse, the good guys.
This doesn't just stay in the ghettos. It actually expands the ghettos to your back garden. Anyway, so things are getting worse. I mean, Starbucks is like, yeah, I think we're out of here, actually. We're leaving.
Wait, what? They just left Portland?
Yes. At least in 2 locations in Portland, but 16 locations across various Democrat-run states. They say, quote, we are focused on investing in safe store experiences and empowering our local leaders to put safety first. Over the last year, we have seen a dramatic increase in in-store incidents that do not uphold the standards of the Starbucks experience for our partners or our customers.
That's a very polite way of putting it.
That is a very polite
Anyone
way
who
of
has
putting it.
seen the footage from the Portland riots and the George Floyd riots knows that Antifa would go out of their way to try and burn down and target Starbucks as a symbol of capitalism.
Yeah.
And
As if Starbucks isn't an openly woke company.
as well, which is hilarious.
You get what you deserve. They're not burning down Chick-fil-A, are they?
No, Chick-fil-A doesn't have to deal with this. But it was funny because you also saw just the extremities. It would be like a Starbucks and then like a block of flats, or maybe 20 families above the Starbucks, and Antifa would just set fire to it and be like, "Yeah, fire doesn't rise."
Yeah, no problems here. Yeah. So why are they closing? Well, one local news outlet went and spent some time in there. So it turns out in Portland, only 2 of their various stores are closing, but they're 2 in specific places. And that implies that the bigger the ghettos grow, the more Starbucks will simply have to close, right? Listen to what they have to say about it, right? So Starbucks wrote to employees in a July 11th public letter. They say, quote, you're also seeing firsthand the challenges facing our communities: personal safety, racism, the lack of access to healthcare, a growing mental health crisis, rising drug use, and more.
Oh, God.
These are reports that have been filed to Starbucks HQ from employees.
What? So we have all these homeless guys turning up and
a lot of racism.
They keep telling us they wouldn't be homeless if it wasn't for racism, presumably.
But Jason Renard, a board member for the Mental Health Association of Portland, clearly someone who's doing a brilliant job, he is not impressed by Starbucks. He says this: blaming people with mental troubles is asinine. There may be people
He's literally taking a dump on my store's floor. But don't blame him.
He's meth raging over there. Calm down. There may be people causing troubles, but blaming them for your business failure, that's not real.
You should just offer such great deals that people are willing to put up with this crap.
Like, Starbucks isn't a failing business model. The problem is the community around it can't support it because it's toxic as hell.
Oh, God. Could you imagine, like, you know, the president of the Congo saying this to you? You're like, well, I know the country's in constant civil war, but that's your business failure.
Exactly. Why doesn't your business model account for this? Right. But Renaud also acknowledges that such blame is increasingly common. Everyone's saying it. I mean, he literally says pretty much everyone who sits by a door in the metro area is having this conversation. But the problem is Starbucks. So, and I love in this article, Starbucks' decision as to which shops to close remains mysterious. Who could know why they closed this one and not this other one?
Break out the X-Files music.
Yeah.
Who knows? Mysteries of unsolved mysteries, huh?
Anyway, let's get back to the racism, shall we? Because that's a problem in Portland. As you'll see from this article, where Portlanders of colour are still being overrepresented in traffic stops.
Wonder what that might be.
Being stopped in traffic is the most common way most people come in contact with the police, but we still don't experience all those stops equally. No, it's people who are committing crimes.
We're not equal.
Yes.
Never will be. You're not even equal to yourself on a different day.
In Portland, people of colour are overrepresented in traffic stops, with black people experiencing the most drastic effects of this bias. It's just a bias.
Yeah, we just made it. Just
Hey, there's a black. Quick, I'm going to pull him over. He's driving the speed limit, but like, you know.
Do you know why I pulled you over, sir?
Oh, God, it's the Portland PD. Like, I mean, sorry.
There's so much footage of them just executing black men.
If this was in Los Angeles, I might have a different opinion, right? But it's just ridiculous, right? And of course, this
You're
is
the guys that killed George Floyd, right?
And the thing is, right, they say here, and this is more than an inconvenience, black people across the country have been killed by cops using lethal force during otherwise routine traffic stops. It's like, right, but why would they be needing to use lethal force? Like, why? Pulled you over, sir? Yeah, well, that's it. You're black. Like, no.
Just taps on the window goes down. Oh, no.
Exactly. Like, there's no connection here, right? But anyway, so why are people being killed on the deadliest block in Portland? This is what the Oregonian asks. Now, they're behind a paywall, so I didn't get to read this, but I'm going to guess they're not going to come to a sane conclusion. There's a clip, though, from a local news outlet that we can watch that I think is worth our time. Let's play this.
Wes, the city just got some new data, and that's helping to drive the response here?
It is, that's right. So their plan is built upon these new research findings. So it found that just over half of Portland's gun violence is group member involved. 200 people are responsible for the vast majority of the city's gun violence. The largest age group is 25 to 34. Although African-American men make up just 5.9% of Portland's population, they comprise 47% of shooting victims and suspects. And Portland's rate of gun violence has increased faster than many of our peer cities. Wheeler says that part of their efforts will be to reach out to these people who are most likely to commit or become a victim of gun violence and work to help them develop a safer lifestyle.
So despite for...
I mean, it's literally the stat. Like, it seems to be
200 people.
An immutable law of nature.
It's such a good thing, though, to always remind people. That's all it takes. 200 people to completely ruin a place.
Yep.
And that's not a large amount of people to import.
And possibly the sort of 50 or so in government.
Yeah, there's that as well.
But I love the solution. Well, we're going to try and persuade them to adopt a more healthy lifestyle. So good luck with that. Just good luck with reasoning on this.
So I'm a drug king. But,
Yeah.
I could be in McDonald's instead, working 9 till 5.
I could be in a Starbucks. Anyway, so Portland has announced a state of emergency. Like, unironically, there is a state of emergency due to historic levels of gun violence.
Yeah.
This is progressive governance.
That's the problem, not the government itself.
Florida isn't under any state of emergency. Portland is.
But it's just such like topsy-turvy way of thinking. It's like, well, we stopped enforcing the law and the violence went up, so that's the emergency. It's like, no, the emergency is you're not doing your job.
Yep. In declaring a state of emergency due to the city's historic levels of gun violence, Ted Wheeler said that his goal was to reduce fatal shootings by over 10%. It's up by 230%. We're going to try and get that to 220%. By increasing community-based interventions. Right, so they are going to send the community workers out when a shooting spree breaks out. Good luck. He's also called for a patrol of the deadliest blocks because he's a racist. obviously. And the answer, if we go to the next one, we can see is simply to give them money. That's our initiative. Gripped by gun violence that's affecting cities across the nation, Democrat cities, the mayor of Portland issued new emergency declaration with the goal of reducing gun killings by at least 10%. The initiative directs $2.4 million to community groups and prevention efforts. Oh, that's going to work. That's going to work. If we just put money in the hands of community groups, then that's just going to be problem solved.
Local activists, here's a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Stop the gun violence.
Yeah.
You what? Okay.
Yeah. He says, we will not stop until the gun violence stops. So you weren't having a problem with gun violence, like literally 5 years ago, before you started doing all of this progressive nonsense.
That's the thing. That's so strange when it's in living memory and people act like the
In
world they
living
live in.
memory? It's in like...
But I mean, like in sort of, not even just, oh, I may remember that from my childhood, but yeah, I remember that a couple of years ago, kind of living memory. But then
within his governance term of governance.
Yeah, but like my friend moved here recently and still remembers it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
And then people still pretend as if the current world is all there's ever been.
It's mental, isn't it? But anyway, so the question, of course, becomes, should progressive reforms take the blame for this? The answer is, of course, yes. This is the question that the researchers at the Brennan Center for Justice at New York University School of Law said. And their conclusion was, drumroll,
racismus?
There isn't enough evidence to establish a link between violence and progressive policies.
Thank God for that. All right, don't worry. We can just carry on then. We don't know. No idea. There's no case studies.
It's not like Portland is proof of this. We're seeing narratives about crime and public safety being used to roll back gains in the reform movement, largely without evidentiary basis. Woman has roid-raging drug addicts on her lawn. Consequence of Ted Wheeler's governance. No evidence. You know exactly who's committing all the gun crime. No evidence. Don't know what you're talking about.
We kept releasing Antifa no matter what they did, just with no charges. So then they started bombing stuff instead of just beating people up, and don't know that happened.
What you're implying there is a rollback in the gains in the reform movement. The problem is real, though. The nation's murder rate rose nearly 30% in 2020 alone, and of course Portland was an 83% jump in homicides in that 1 year, but of course it got way worse. But one of the researchers says it's not a blue state problem. The pandemic-fueled crime wave... Now this is the pandemic causing this. This happened before the pandemic.
I mean, yeah, but also... but we remember what happened during the pandemic, where they started just releasing people from prison.
Yes.
In blue cities.
That works.
Or, New York City was the funniest one, where some guy, he got, arrested 5 times in a day, still out.
But I love this, right? The crime wave is hitting red and blue states, progressive cities, and conservative rural counties. That's right. The rural conservatives are going on these mad shooting sprees just constantly. This is where that's happening. I mean, there's no evidence that it is, but anyway, it's difficult to pinpoint a specific cause, according to their analysis, but the evidence points to broad national causes driving rising crime. A professor called Chris Campbell, who studied Oregon's criminal justice system extensively, was critical of addressing violent crime with more punitive policies. If there's one thing we can't have is a punitive policy, right? We've never seen that actually work to reduce crime.
I'm sorry, but like, for people who know anything, just follow Andy No for the last few years. You will know every single time some Antifa loon gets caught assaulting someone or is finally arrested, they're taken to the police station and immediately let go.
I mean, if they were put in jail for 15 years, then they wouldn't be able to commit crimes.
No, but everyone who does end up with an actual jail sentence is usually like 10 years because they wait until it gets that bad of a crime.
Yes.
They'll have been let out like 3 or 4 times from the police station for other minor crimes.
They'll be bailed out by like activist organizations that raise money to bail them out.
Oh, they might not
assuming they even need a bail.
They might not be even given bail as the point of getting at. The idea that, we can't do anything more punitive. They were currently doing literally zero. Yeah. Like, they would get arrested and released the same day and no charges would be paid against them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to make any more jokes about the Taliban. But he said that, look, unless this is accompanied by significant investments in social services, nothing will get better. Stricter gun control laws are one way to address the problem, because that's right. These gangs, groups of people, all have their gun licenses.
Very law-abiding. But also, Antifa were literally bombing places with IEDs and Molotov cocktails, which I presume they got a license for that IED. Yeah, but at the courthouse.
But the gun control wouldn't control IEDs, of course. It would just control the guns the gangs would have, surely.
Really common IED
It's just
control.
It's so obvious that they have no idea. And not even they have no idea. They have deliberately carved out a section of reality they're not allowed to think about. And all they can do is just flat repeat the progressive talking points, despite the fact that reality is showing that these don't work.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site. For example, this video, the premium hangouts we do with premium members on our cyberpunk dystopia, which me and Carl did together. If you want to follow what else I'm putting out, you can follow me at Getter at Callum on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.